For the newly indoctrinated, Jim Butcher's The Dresden Files follows the story of a professional wizard in Chicago. We started our podcast as a way to help break down the series' most important moments, characters, and lore. This is McAnally's Dresden Files Pubcast by Free Flow Rambling. Conjure at it by your own risk. Welcome to the McAnally's Pubcast, brought to you by Free Flow Rambling. This is episode number 3.1, Ragged Angels, where we were discussing restoration of faith. My name is Tansenn, and I'm joined by Jess.
Hey.
And Maggie.
Oh, that's switched that on us. Yeah. I don't go first. I wasn't ready. No.
I just wanted to fuck with you guys.
It worked. Usually still zoned out at this point.
Right? Just get to my name for like 3.5 more seconds.
Ogre Bridge Abutments Realty Incorporated. Let us help you to find the perfect home, focusing on quiet areas, nearby schools with a distinct lack of police presence.
Harry has a case under Ragged Angel investigations to find Faith Astor. Things quickly become complicated when his partner informs him that they have been framed by the parents for kidnapping rather than admitting their daughter ran away. Dresden needs to meet his partner across the bridge, where they find guarded by the troll Gogoth. In a second attempt to cross the bridge, Officer Murphy arrives on the scene.
Yeah, so this has been thrown out there as Butcher's back in college. One of his first short stories, one of his introductions to the series. What is it that you say? His look, I can't write.
Yes. It was proof to his teacher that he was incapable of writing a novel, and this and Stormfront was what he produced for a grade. Yeah. So this is like the OG content. This was like, I don't know if he wrote this entirely before he wrote Stormfront, but he had at least this idea in his head before he wrote Stormfront of how Murphy and Harry met. So this is the story of how they got to know each other.
Yeah. So it is, and Butcher even says, take it at face value. It is what it is. I basically wrote it in college before I was a more refined writer, and as we've mentioned before, like you say, even Stormfront has a little bit of its rust patches, and his writing does become more refined.
And he says,
as he go along. So
as a writer later on, he'd write short stories like the night before they were due. So this one very possibly was also written in an hour before class was due. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? But given all of that, it's not really a bad little story. Like it is a cute.
It's like a meet cute between Murphy and Harry.
It's not. Sometimes you can look back and be like, oh yeah, you can totally tell the story I wrote when I was 16 and the story I wrote when I was 26. And this doesn't have super huge glaring. Like it's not real bad. But it's. Yeah. It's a little introduction to how Harry got his start. So he was already a wizard and had done a fair bit of wizard training, as we know, as mentioned in Stormfront. Harry was adopted early on and started, and we know by 16 he was, accused of murder against his old mentor.
Via the arts.
So we know at least. And what did we say? This is a couple of years before Stormfront?
This takes place roughly 2 to 3 years before Stormfront.
So he's 22-ish, 23-ish, give or take, right? So, he's been doing some more hardcore wizard study, and now this is doing his legitimate
getting his
run-of-the-build PI license that, anybody can and would do in the world today. So he is apprenticing under, are we given his last name?
I don't believe it comes up yet.
I don't believe. So we're on Nick. I don't think it really matters, but Nick.
Probably not.
Christian. So he runs the Ragged Angel agency, which, as Murphy sort of gives us, is sort of more geared toward trying to find missing children, and that specifically. So I think obviously they do sort of a more broad spectrum. That's not the only thing they do, but that's
the reputation.
That's sort of more the reputation. That's more where Nick's passion lies or whatever. So so he's got this.
So the story starts out very quickly with Harry having found their missing child.
Yes.
Who is fighting him the entire time.
Such a little, he calls him, okay, I got her, come get us, and he's like, let her, no. And she's kicking and screaming, let me go, you beanpole, and and mule kicking him in the shins.
And she's got this little like schoolgirl uniform, and it's
Right.
and we
Little
find out that her parents have offered like $25,000 for her retrieval, her
to find her.
to be found. Yes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
also
they
very
hired.
Yeah, so this is clearly
Nick and
like
Harry.
a rich little girl from a rich family, right? That's established, paragraph 1. But also very quickly, Nick lays down the law and he's like, we got framed. Like the Astors have called the police and said she was kidnapped now. Like, drop this kid and get the hell away from her before the cops find you.
Yeah.
So it's very quick, like, doom, 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 here we are. Hi, Harry.
Hi, Harry. Welcome to your life.
Yeah.
Again, whatever can go wrong will go
Yeah.
wrong. So, yeah, exactly right. And Nick kind of puts on the blows, just dump her and go. And Harry's like, I can't just, like, we're in a bad part of town. He's like, whatever. The criminals can fend for themselves, And he's like, dude. And he's like, really? Nick wouldn't do that either. Like, if he was here, he would ditch a 10-year-old kid. And that's the other thing. He's like 8 or 9. He's like, you can't just leave a 9-year-old. And she's like, I'm 10, you insensitive jerk. And I love how, like, even that is a nice nod because kids are so particular. Like, I'm 9.5. I'm 9 and 3. Like, that matters so much to you. And like how dare you call me 9? I'm 10.
Not that anyone cares, but there's this really funny radio show with James Astors describing how he got into a prank war with like a 9-year-old, and on the first episode he like refers to the kid as 7 or 8, and the kid was apparently very offended and made sure that on subsequent tellings of the story he would always be referred to as a 9.
See, right? Exactly. It's like, it makes a huge, I can even remember, when my parents would like round up or round down or just forget because there was a million of us, and it was like, yeah, it's like you were so
How
upset.
dare you.
How dare you?
I've earned these 7 years.
Right? Yeah, damn you. I've been through all right. But yeah, it was just kind of a nice, cute little point. And again, I find him writing, it's just a hard thing to do. And I know sometimes, like, when I'm reading stories, and I'm like, does this really sound like a kid to me? Like, the kids I meet in real life, does this sound? And I'm not saying I could do any better, because I'm sure if I had to write a story, I would struggle with it too. But I find he does do a pretty good job that being sort of the rich kid and stuff like that, I'm like, I find her being a little bit more outspoken and whatever, not to be terribly out of character, either, just for kids or someone in her position or whatever. I find sometimes, like, when I'm watching
A wee little bit of a brat.
a wee little bit of a brat, but like, I just sometimes when I'm watching like movies or whatever, and it's like, yeah, you get somebody like Harry who's like, 6'9" and a big coat and kind of, angular and scruffy, and he's lurking around a park, and a kid will just come up and be like, hi, who are you? What are you doing here? Why? And I'm like, the kids do that? And like, I would not have, one, my parents were like, don't talk to strangers. Secondly, I was like, there was a whole big respect your elders and don't, like, I would not, and I'm like, maybe that's me.
You don't stare adults in the eye.
You don't just like start interrogating, or like even like the tiniest bit. And I'm like, again, you needed it for the plot, but like in Stormfront, when like Jenny Sells is like, hey, Mr. Dresden, I hope you're one of the good guys. Are you gonna have to kill my dad? I'm like, dude, I would not have been having that conversation at like 12 or 13 years old in that manner with somebody like especially like my family was. Not that we had a lot of bad secrets or anything like that, but it was a little bit like, you don't talk about, you don't go to the playground and be like, man, we're so poor, we had to eat nothing but, like, potatoes all week. Like, if that was a factual thing, it would just be like, yeah, you don't talk about that. That's not how you share your, but you know what I mean? They're giving me weird
Don't
looks.
air your dirty laundry.
Don't air your dirty laundry and your problems and your, things like that,
But,
right?
kids are very 50-50 on that. Because I was much more like, I don't talk to adults when I was a kid. Because why would I? I don't want to talk to them and they don't want to hear what I have to say. But you also do meet kids that do just occasionally tell you something. And you're like, should you be telling me that?
And there are that, yes.
Some kids
having
really
had
just don't have.
my kids on the playground in elementary schools and things. Yeah, there are sometimes, you're right. So, but anyways, I just found that, yeah, this was not super out of character. At least it made her sort of, yeah. But Harry's like just itching. He's like, whatever. He's like, and I love, again, this very much tells you where Harry is in his life, that he's like, take the L. He's like, dude, I'm broke. He's like, he doesn't even have, I'm assuming, like, $1 or less to take the, like, I'm trying to think back to, like, 20 years ago and what I would have paid for, like, bus fare, and I'm like, I think it's only, like, so it's, like, less than $4 now for, like, an adult bus fare. So 20 years ago, right?
Maybe just $1 or so.
Yeah, right. It probably less than $2 or something. And Harry's like, I don't have that. Get your ass out here and come pick us up. Yeah, so Nick is like, fine, but traffic or whatever, like it's going to be a hassle to get across the bridge. So he's like, meet me on the other side of the bridge from where you are. And like, he's like, you're not there in half an hour. I'm leaving without you. Like, I'm not getting wrapped up in this. I'm not risk getting arrested because these crackpots would rather make headlines than...
It's good to note, too, that, you know, Nick, as much as he comes off as a bit of a grumbly idiot, he does legitimately enjoy his job, and...
He does,
you know,
yeah.
Turns out to be a bit of a softie.
Yeah.
He is, and that's exactly right what Harry's right. Like, yeah, like, oh yeah, he's telling me, but he's like, no way would Nick have done it either. Like, if he were in my position, right? Like, he knows we got to get this kid safely somewhere, whether we can't legitimately turn her over. But so yeah, so basically this is the plan, right? So they're like, so they start heading across the bridge, and she starts like, you know, like, well, how'd you find me anyways? You know, like I thought, and Harry's like, I'm a wizard, and she's like, whatever. And he's like, well, that kind of sucks that already she's like only 10 and really doesn't believe in any of the magic and the Santa Claus and the whatever. And he's like, although it's like he does, but still Santa Claus is real, but we won't get into that right now.
This is the first time we hear the Dester joke. It belongs on the set of El Dorado.
Which is straight, and again, maybe because I read Stormfront so many times before, but I was like, dude, you, what's the word? Recycled that. Because that's exactly what Murph says to him when we meet her at the Madison. She's like,
It's a throwback.
It's a throwback, whatever, right? Like, was it because this, I mean, really this story was never meant to see the light of day, right? It was just once things got popular and people wanted more background into it, and they wanted the little short stories and the snippets he had. This one was like, hey, sure, here, I'll throw this out here, right? So is it just because he really liked that line and didn't want to lose it, so he like gave it to Murphy, or is it supposed to be a running thing?
I think it's supposed to be a running
little bit of
thing
both,
because it ends up being in another book beyond Stormfront,
Yeah,
which I think this should be part of the drinking game.
maybe, but yes, yeah, wasn't that cool? And I just love, right, because it's the first time you get to write here, you're like, I have like this big duster on. He's like, what's wrong with it? Belongs on the set of El Dorado.
It also is worth mentioning that, like, Faith is putting up a fight as he tries to drag her across Chicago to this bridge, you know, and that, like, nobody's coming to help her. Like, he's like, this is where Nick wants me to, like, ditch her, is, like, nobody's even trying to rescue
Yeah,
Faith
he's
right
like,
now.
I could be a real sicko, and, like, this is the part of town where
Everyone puts their head down and you're on your own.
Yeah, you don't get involved if you can help it, because you don't want. It's just
So he's doing this whole like,
So
believe me, kid,
he's
like you
stuck
want
in
my help.
Yeah.
right, stuck in a phone booth with her like screaming and kicking, and everybody's just like do 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 do, and he's like, well, that sucks big time. But yeah, that is really says a lot about where they are, and he's like, gotta love the big city, ain't it grand, you know? Like,
And I think even like there's a certain charm to Chicago that Butcher employs as he goes through his writing. Like this is Dresden City, and Dresden loves it, and he wants to protect it. But I think early on in the writing, maybe Butcher himself didn't have the same love for Chicago. He's like, this is like a horrible place, and like this is bad. And maybe even Chicago grew on Butcher later on. But right at the very beginning, he's like, no, I chose Chicago. It's a horrible place. Like,
well, you know, and that's
which it's, you know, not nearly so bad as its reputation is now.
yeah,
But
that
What's
as
the
it
other
is.
ones? It was New York.
it was
Kansas?
New York, Los Angeles. Sure, Kansas.
No, but
and-
didn't you say Kansas was originally? They're like, dude, you
It
can't
was-
set it in.
Yeah, there was
Kansas,
four of
that's
them. It was LA, New York, Kansas, and
Chicago.
Chicago.
LA and New York definitely have their seedy, gross.
well, he's like
areas, so-
well, yes.
Okay, there is very dark, nasty, wrong side of the tracks kind of place, and this is one of them. But as he starts walking and starts to go, she starts kind of asking questions. He's like, well, this is better than her like screaming and yelling and kicking and dragging. So he's like, I'll answer questions. He's like, hey, actually, I kind of like answering questions about, you know, called professional bribe. But he's like, basically he's like, this is good. This will kind of distract her, and we can. And as he starts getting into the role and starts expounding,
telling her about, like, the
telling
wizardly
her about
life.
the wizardly life and magic,
How
and,
he found her,
and she bites his fucking hand and like jerks. He's like, "Fuck her! She was distracting me." I'm like, oh, good, let's get her off of this, and she's like, sucker.
So he
Actually, she
drops her.
literally is
Yeah.
like, sucker.
so he drops her. She takes off running towards the bridge that they were headed to, which is great and useful.
Except,
Whoops.
Hey, kitty kid, you don't know this place like I do.
yeah, he's like, yeah, she wasn't supposed to just run pell-mell out there, and
And then a great rubbery hairy arm slithered out from beneath a manhole cover at the apex of the bridge and wrapped its greasy fingers around one of her ankles.
And this is why
Troll under the bridge.
Yeah. Duh, duh, duh. So needless to say, the kid kind of, freaks out. What is that? Get it off me, get it off me. Jess is like, fuck. So yeah, we meet Gogoth. Gorgoth?
Gogoth.
Gogoth. Yeah, no R. Gogoth. And Dresden's like, yo, you can't do that. And he's like, dude, running across my bridge. And I love even this little interaction. He's like, big, dumb troll, but it's like a semi-professional interaction. He's like, wizard, she's in my terrain. And he's like, yes, but mortals aren't all just like free range, willy-nilly anymore. And he's like, but naughty kids, Gogoth can have naughty kids. Right? And Dresden's like, well, not since the Unseelie Accords. But yeah, I just kind of love how even though it's very, barbarian, pea-brain.
We still have our laws, okay?
We still have laws. There's still, we fit in here, you fit in there, and this troll is like...
They have a they have a professional disagreement. And Harry's like, okay, fine, survival of the fittest then.
Yeah, he's like, fine, I'll just blast your ass out of here or whatever. And he's like, no. So, so they decide to start. So Harry calls his bluff a little bit. He does some shiny, poofy, gets the ring all glowy and bright, and he's like, I will fry your ass. And the troll's like, kind of eventually fine. Like, doesn't look like he's going to back down at first, but kind of is like, So Harry starts backing off. And then acts totally
Scoops up the girl,
turns his back, walks away, and he's like, is he watching? Timmy's like, is he following us? She's like, no, he's just staring. He's like, okay, good, let me know if that changes. She's like, so you can vaporize him? He's like, yeah, no, so we can run. She's like, but he's like, yeah, bullshit. So he's like,
you said you were a wizard. Yeah, a wizard with I was going to say a sense of like self-preservation, but we really
that's
Harry
not,
does not.
No, he tells us why. It's because he got up early he was at a seance exorcism like before dawn, and then he had to
wasted spells finding her,
find a couple of wedding rings, a set of car keys, and then spent the rest of the day chasing after her, and now I'm pooped. He's like, I'm tired, I got nothing left in the tank. And she's like, wow, lame. And he's like, look, dude, you want to go? So they start heading away, and Harry's like, okay, if I head up a couple blocks, there's another bridge. If we zip, I can get up and around and back over and still meet Nick. And as they're passing by, presumably the place where he just found Faith, I'm guessing, maybe not, maybe completely unassociated, but there's a bunch of cops and lights. And he's like, oh, shit.
Walks right into him.
Stand out like again, right? Harry is not real inconspicuous. So while some other guy might have got away with dragging around a kid down in that area, given that the Astors, lovely people that they are, have given Harry's and Nick's descriptions as the kidnappers.
And you'd think that ragged angel investigations would have a reputation of finding lost children. So it's like, why do you think they're in possession of a child? You think that'd be a good alibi?
Why we steal your kids and oh no, let me find them for you. Yeah, but exactly. They're just kind of the bleeding heart, good souls kind of people, and
they have this like Faith and Harry have this brief conversation, a little bit more about wizards and stuff like that, and it's like, yeah, there's bad people in the world, and she's like, my parents are like that, and it's like a little bit sad.
Just ignore me. They drag me out to show me off to their friends, and other than that, they can't be bothered with me.
She's like, but I heard you're really broke, and he's like, yeah, like I'll only be a private investigator for 6 more months before I can open my own business, but until then, life's pretty cheap
like,
now.
Why are you doing this? That was it. Yeah, because she's like, why are you doing it? And he's like, oh, I'm earning my license, and I have to, right? I got dues to put in still before, so, and then this cop is like, hey, buddy, and he's like, and it's kind of cute too. Like he was gonna put her down because he's like, oh, she's too big and heavy to be carrying, and I'm tired. And then she's like, my parents don't love me, and he's like,
damn
she's
it.
not that heavy. He's like, oh, that was it. It's like her shoe because the troll grabbed her foot, and when she, Harry stomps on his hand and she wriggles free, but pulls off like her sock and shoe. So she's got like a skin knee, and she's like only got one shoe, and he's like, she's not really that heavy. It's like, oh. But yeah, so they move off and Harry ducks down like another alleyway. And she starts telling him about her grandma.
Yeah.
Grandma. I can't say grandma without sounding like grandma.
Well, and Harry is almost about to like just send her off to the police and be like, yo, go run at them. And like, I'm going to duck off. You go to them. But then she's like, then they'll just take me back home. And he's like, God damn it, kid. Like, it's fine.
They'll just... Well, then she's even like, no, because she's like, you can get across the bridge. The troll won't care. And she's like, I'll just go turn myself in. And he's like, yeah. She's like, I don't know how I knew, but no, she wouldn't. He's like, she'd just take off again, and then she'd be in more trouble. And no, he's like, she'll go back on the bridge. Yeah. And he's like, and that really is kind of heartbreaking. And that really is how, like, when you're 10 and you're just like, fuck it, nobody loves me. You know, that, yeah, not even just that she was necessarily going to try and run away again, but just that he's like, nah, she'd just head back out on the bridge herself and deal with it. I was like, So, yeah, poor Faith, and kind of, she's having a rough day. And yes, it's a little bit like the trials and tribulations of a 10-year-old. This is her whole entire world. And, you know, it's easy as adults to look back and be like, wow, kid, it's not that bad. But at the same time, I'm like, yeah, you are in a position where you do have kind of crappy parents that don't care a lot about you. And at that age and stage of your life, like, that is really a huge thing, you know?
That is the whole world.
That is the whole world, right? So it's sort of blown beyond proportions, but sort of not. Or not, yeah, anyways.
So Harry does this whole, like, you know, sit down with a child and make her believe in the power of magic again. And he, like, does his little, like, spells for her. And this little magic
gives her the ring. Yeah, the one that he made light up. And he's like, what's one of your best memories? And she's like, Christmas with her grandma. You know, and she's like, oh, they got me all these Barbie dolls, like the whole line. But, like, if I kept them in the packaging, they'd be worth something. And she's like, but my grandma actually got me the doll I want. Like, I wanted a doll to play with. And grandma got it for me. And then he, like, right, because he's giving her the ring on her finger. And then, like, he moves his hand and it's glowing, right? Like, she made it glow and she's like, oh, right. And again, it's that little restoration of faith right there where exactly right that gives her that little spark, that hope. And he's like, yeah, the world is shitty and maybe your parents are jackasses, but you do have some good memories, you do have some good stuff, there are people in the world who care. Just keep remembering that until you can get out there and make your own connections, make your own family, make your own, you know, maybe your parents will never be there, but right. So, so then they're like, well, I guess we're going back out.
And they make a deal that they're going to go over the bridge together again this time.
Yeah. And they think they're all outwitting him. And the Dresden's all eyes out front, being aware, keeping an eye on. And the thing is like, yeah, dangling off the underside of the bridge or whatever and grabbing her. He's changed locations. So he still gets a surprise attack.
Well, not to mention that he takes out a bunch of the lights as well, so it's even darker and more obscured.
Yes. Dresden notices that, because of the troll or whatever, that, a bunch of the street lights. So
on the one hand, the troll is not after the child now. He's angrier at Dresden.
That's true.
Harry's like, yo, you run. And then the troll is like, wizard.
Although he did lunge. Did he get her this? Because he finds out because Faith screams again because the troll does come trying to grab at her again, but she dodges it completely or something the second time.
Well, because Nick starts to pull up and he's like, yo, you get over to Nick, and
that's
meanwhile he's preoccupied with the troll.
So he goes at it and at this point, like you say, the troll lunges for Harry.
He tries to leap for Faith.
Right, and
Harry grabs him by the legs.
That's what it. Okay, so Harry, because I was gonna say he did go for the kid again. But anyways, so Harry manages to intercede again. And is like, just run, right? Yeah, he sees Nick's car down there, so he's like, okay, run, you go. And while he's grappling with this thing, the little cop shows up again and just jumps on his back and nightstick around the neck and starts. She's like, what the hell? And Dresden's like, gotta give her game. She has no idea what's going on, but she's just
gets right in there.
She just jumped, okay, somebody's attacking somebody, so I'm gonna do my cop thing, but what the... So, manages to shift the balance enough that Dresden can sort of...
collect the troll's cleaver and... take his own swing.
Yeah. So Dresden gets back in the game. And then it's just like, just basically all these little teeny tiny trolls just blah, 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 all out of the big giant. Just
Disgusting.
like deflate. Yeah. Little swarmy, and they all go flailing and running.
Writhing, wriggling horde.
Yeah. Then you've really got like the cop shocked Pikachu face, like, motherfucker, what the shit just went on? Like,
Could you imagine?
did I show up to work drunk tonight? Like,
Right?
Am I on acid?
yeah, like, did I
Am I
touch
on
something and
candid
I'm like,
camera? What the? Is you guys still pranking the new kid? Like, what is going on here? Yeah, it was, ugh, yeah. And Faith is like, that was gross, I want to be a wizard.
So, Dresden towering over this cop, like, leans down, checks the badge. Hey, thanks, Murph.
He's like,
That's real
"Thanks,
helpful."
Lieutenant Murphy, or what, officer. Thanks,
Yeah.
Officer Murphy. But yeah, she's like, okay, this was something. And Dresden's like, yeah.
She's like, hey, you're that.
You're the guy. And he's like, and then Faith
Comes to the rescue.
What, this buffoon? Like, please, he couldn't pull off a kidnapping. I totally ran away. Like, this guy's such a loser. No way. I was like, oh, get on your Faith. And Harry's probably like, thanks, fuck you. But it's like one of those things where it's like, you want to argue, but it's really not. And you're, I'm so good kidnapping
Like all the women in Harry's life.
Yes.
So, Murphy, this random beat cop, scoops up Faith, takes her back over the bridge, now newly defunct of trolls.
Now newly defunct. Well, and that's the thing, because Harry couldn't just turn her over before, but Murph decides to turn a blind eye. She's like, get out of here before my partner shows up. Because, she's heard of Ragged Angel, and she knows, and given what just went down, and obviously they were seemingly trying to save the kid and help her out, and, Faith's insistence that she wasn't kidnapped by them and all of that, Murph decides to, give him the benefit of the doubt and sort of go with her gut.
Which is just a little bit more about Murphy, as much as she is there for the law, she is her own person too. And she has her own
code.
She follows the legitimate code of the police. She believes in that very deeply. The letter of the law. But at the same time, she is not some mindless animal who, doesn't see past it. She has been known to occasionally bend the rules as long as it is in the parameters of the law.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's a judgment call, and she makes it, right? And she's comfortable. She does trust her own judgment and that sort of a thing.
Even as a brand new beat cop.
Even as a brand
new,
new, right? She's got that. I don't know. Maybe it's all that taekwondo or Aikido or whatever. She's got confidence. She knows where she stands and what she stands for, and has some faith in her instincts and things like that. So yeah. So she decides to cut him break, cut him some slack. The girls return more or less safe and sound, so she'll let it go at that. But yeah, and what is it? Yeah, because then Nick is like, what the hell was that? Like, is that like from your neck of the woods or whatever? Like, what the fuck do you fake? Like, what are you up against? I'm just like I always tell you.
Just got a little faith.
Yeah. So yeah, it is a cute introduction. It
is overall very short and sweet.
Very short and sweet, basically. Yeah. No major.
And semi-implied after that, the Harry and Murphy eventually run into each other time and time again.
Well, and yeah, I guess
throughout the years until she becomes SI and starts hiring him more officially.
That might have been her interaction to SI.
That
big giant troll turn into little tiny trolls.
That is part of it. Is that Murphy can't just turn a blind eye to some of the weird stuff out there because she's like, dude, something happened, and they're like, just can you not?
That's a little bit of a nod to that too, because a lot of people, they see this magical thing and they explain it away, and Murphy didn't do that. Murphy was still like, she continued to like call up Dresden after that and was like, hey, what the shit, time and time again. He was like, Murphy is just one of those people that, she's there for it, whether or not she likes it or not.
Yeah, it's
Murphy shows
scary, it's weird, she doesn't always know, but exactly, she's not going to let the weird things bully people in her town and kidnap kids and kill hookers and, so, mobster thugs.
Mobsters, etc.
It's like, that just doesn't matter. You don't get killed in Chicago. We just don't like that. So yeah, that I think is exactly the whole point of where once he hangs out his shingle, she does call him up for.
It helps when he eventually is in the book in about 6 months.
Yes. So as she progresses and gets a little higher up and is in a position to consult with people, that's who she goes to consult. So that's where they have that base that relationship established. In Stormfront. So it's restoration of faith. It would be interesting to see if whatever became of little Faith Astor, being one of the first.
I thought she was going to be there in Battleground.
Oh,
I really
let's not
thought
go
she was
there.
gonna be.
Yeah. But it just again with her comment like, I want to be a wizard and blah blah blah, and just that he left her with the ring. I'm like, you know what? I don't know if Butcher ever has plans, or maybe if we as fans make a big enough fuss, maybe it's one of those things. I'm like, I'd like to be a little more organic. I don't want him to like just throw it in because everybody's like, tell me. I would almost like to have some sort of a natural, like, oh, I was in the back of my head, this is what happened to her, so I'll share. But it would just be cute, like, does she keep that ring? Can she keep the glow going? Like, did she ever go off into anything supernatural, or is it just it is what it is?
Did she end up being one of those patrons at McAnally's?
Right, exactly. Is she kind of like a low-level fringe, kind of kitchen witch something, or is it just whatever? But anyways, it just would be kind of neat. It was one of those wonderful things to be interesting if we ever knew the fate of Faith.
This concludes our episode 3.1, Ragged Angels. Thank you for listening. Join us for the next episode where we cover the graphic novel, Welcome to the Jungle. If you'd like to follow along with what order we follow, you can find our timeline listed in the website McAnally's.ca. There you can also find links to our other podcasts, social media, and other fun tidbits. Please subscribe if you like what you're hearing, and please consider supporting us through Patreon to keep the magic alive and see more content. We are free flow rambling. Conjure at it by your own risk.